Thanks, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here to talk about artificial intelligence and how associations can use it and what they really need to know. So first, just a couple of things. This is not a technical seminar. There are no algorithms, there's no formulas, there's no math. It's meant to be stimulating, to make you think about things that you need to be considering as AI is moving faster than any other of the technologies that we see. So let's jump into it. Let's think about it. Marketing automation, big data, data warehouses, data lakes, cloud computing, blockchain. Each one of these things was meant to revolutionize business. And if you didn't jump on the bandwagon immediately, your organization was doomed to failure. And now, all of a sudden, here comes artificial intelligence, another quote unquote new technology that comes with all, if not more of the hype with all its predecessors. And so I want to ask the question, is this just another shiny object like all the other ones before it? And I think when we start to think about it, from my perspective at least, the answer is both yes and no. To me, artificial intelligence and how it's moving into every aspect of the world we do, this one seems different to me. So I challenge you to think about something that you do today that currently does not leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning. Let's think about it. Maybe you're watching Netflix or Hulu. Guess what? Machine learning powers that recommendation engine that's suggesting the next program for you to watch. How about when you hop in an Uber or a Lyft? AI is absolutely determining the wait time and the pricing. Want to ask Siri maybe about where the closest Starbucks is? That's natural language processing that's translating your voice into action. Maybe you're driving your car using Waze or Google Maps. Machine learning algorithms are analyzing real-time traffic data, and they're figuring out the best route. Maybe you use one of those automated financial platforms. Guess what? Those robo-advisors are using algorithms to automatically rebalance portfolios and increase returns, right? If you think about it, truthfully, AI is rapidly becoming a utility, just like electricity or water is. And that's why, in my mind, I think that it is different from all of these other technological functions or milestones that we've seen in the past. So the AI train is coming, and it's coming at full force. And guess what? In my view, there's nothing that's going to stop it. Organizations that understand it and prepare for it are going to be able to more fully leverage the benefits. And that's what I want to spend time today talking about. Ways to understand it, ways to position your organization so you can most fully benefit from it. So before we jump into more of a deeper discussion of how associations will be impacted by AI, I do think it's important that we sort of understand some of the larger macro forces that are fundamentally changing our digital landscape and preparing us for this AI revolution. So first of all, let's talk about engagement. Because the truth of the matter is it's probably the most important factor that is going to directly impact the way you're able to successfully communicate with your members and prospects. We're really rapidly moving away from an attention economy to an engagement economy. So it used to be that reach and visitors were all about everything. How many page views did I have? How many social views am I getting? How many email addresses did I collect? And it was all about the quantity, right? But now it's all about the engagement, because here's the dirty little secret, right? That websites and Facebook pages that get many visitors or followers, but almost no engagement, guess what? They will be punished by the algorithms. Increasingly, ISPs that see heavy inbound email traffic, your email traffic, with little engagement, no opens, no clicks, no engagement, they're also going to penalize the senders. We are rapidly shifting from kind of that bulk communication into a much more smaller, targeted, sustained engagement type of model. And it's happening all around us, and it's very important to recognize these trends so we can more fully utilize AI. Now, all of this is happening within the backdrop of our demand for immediacy and our intolerance for boredom. Think about it. We have an insatiable appetite to be entertained, to be informed, to be distracted, all on demand. Don't like the TV show you're watching? With a flip of a finger, you're onto a new channel. Don't like that picture of a potential mate online? Swipe left or right. Don't get intrigued by a social media post? A flick of a thumb and it's gone forever. A subject line doesn't immediately grab your attention? Guess what? It's gone. We're living in a world of hyper demand and shortened attention spans. And guess what? It's within this environment that we're trying to break through and engage with our members. So why do members leave? Why do members leave organizations? So a study was done a while ago, and it said 33% of members who do not renew, they don't renew because they left their field or their industry. Guess what? There's nothing you can do about it. Don't waste your time. Mitch was an architect, he retired, he's no longer an architect, done. Can't do anything about it. Okay. 37% of members did not renew because their employer stopped paying their membership. Again, if it were me, I wouldn't put a lot of effort into this. Yes, we have these justification letters and try and convince them. Come on. Are you going to get a lot of more lemon juice out of that lemon? Probably not. But here's something that's startling. 49%, call it half, of members do not renew because they experience a lack of engagement with the organization. Half the people leave because they don't have strong engagement with the organization. That's bad news. But guess what? It's also good news because it's something you can do something about. So this is sort of the premise, and this will show you how it all ties into AI in just a second. But the road to engagement is paved with personalized experiences. And let me repeat that because it is mission critical that we can all understand it, that the road to engagement is paved with personalized experiences. Personalized experiences lead to increased engagement, and increased engagement leads to higher renewals and registration. It's not rocket science. This is the formula, right? So think about it this way. In each of your organizations, take a step back and think about that subsection or subsegment of your membership who renews every single year without ever getting a renewal notice. There's also that subset of members who automatically register for your annual meeting without ever having to receive a promotion. And why is that? The reason they're doing that is because they are highly engaged with your organization. And that's the mantra that we need to be thinking about. How can we consistently engage people in this ever-changing environment where they're flooded with all sorts of information and content? And here's how we tie it all together. Artificial intelligence and machine learning can play a central and pivotal role in helping organizations design and deliver highly personalized experience. We're at a really interesting crossroads in time. Engagement has always been there, and the need for engagement will always be there. In my view, that's never going to change. What has changed is the competitiveness for the attention of people because of all of this channels and flooding of content. But now we've got AI that comes in that can absolutely help us in delivering those personalized experiences. So the first part of AI has to do with data. And let's talk about data, both the benefits and some of the challenges surrounding data. So let's get a few of stats together. So Google processes 40,000 searches every second. That's another 40,000 searches that Google just produced. Another 40,000. And here's what happens every minute on the internet. Snapchat. I'm not sure what the demographic is because it's not a live audience, but my kids, that's what they use. 500,000 photos are on Snapchat every minute. In 1 minute, over 150 emails are sent. Some of those emails are you. Some of those emails are you sending to your members and prospects. There are close to 1 million Tinder swipes per minute online. Now, here's the most startling statistic about data. In the last 2 years, 90% of the world's data was generated. Let's let that sink in for a second. 90% of the world's data was generated just in the last 2 years. The point is there's a staggering amount of data that is being generated every day, data that you generate as well. And here is the point. Data drives AI. That is the fuel for artificial intelligence and machine learning, data. And guess what? Unbeknownst to you, or maybe beknownst to you, you have an unbelievable amount of data. Think about it. You've got data from your AMS. You have engagement data from your email and marketing automation campaigns. Who opens, who clicks, who visits which website. If you're using an online community, you have member engagement interaction. Who posted a thread, who liked it, who commented, who posted a document. And you're sitting on this gold mine of historical data that's sitting in your Impexium database. Who bought, who didn't buy, who renewed, when they renewed, where they live, what they bought, what they attended. That is the fuel for AI. Because basically, what does AI do? AI, not to oversimplify because it is extremely complicated, but really at its basic, it ingests all of this data, and it does what humans are not that good at. It tries to correlate. It looks for patterns. It looks for correlations. It looks for things that we cannot find because our minds can't absorb that much data. And it presents opportunities. And it also can uncover potential risks for us. So AI now is one of the strongest things that can uncover and help us manage our associations in much more effective ways. So, how are organizations using AI? And how are they harnessing this new power? For me, I like to look at 3 main primary drivers of associations: renewals, registrations, and education, right? These, and there are some ancillary ones, but let's be honest, those 3 buckets, that if you're not strong on those 3 buckets, that's not good, right? You need to have strong renewal processes. You need to have stable or increasing registrations, and you need to have an engaged audience that you're educating all the time. So let's examine each one of these 3 and see how AI and how associations are beginning to use, and how they can in the future use AI to maximize these things. So first, membership renewal. That everybody I talk to, that is a thing, right? How do I get my members to renew? So I'm going to talk about sort of 2 kind of categories of membership renewal. The first one is you should strive to never send out a renewal notice. And everyone's sitting back, this guy, I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he visited Canada recently. What is he talking about? But the truth is, you have a subset of people who always renew. And they always renew because they're engaged. We're going to talk a little bit more in just a bit about how AI is helping in terms of the content that you can deliver to create these highly personalized experiences that will lead to engagement that will result in membership renewal and increased membership renewal. So the first thing we need to be thinking about is not the mechanics of how do I start 91 days before or 90 days before? We're going to talk about that in a second. But the first thing to be thinking about is how do I maintain engagement so I have almost like an opt-in renewal process. I don't need to prod people. Now, having said that, AI can do a lot with the mechanics as well. Once again, you are sitting on a gold mine of information. We know, you know, when people renew, who renewed, who didn't renew, who received renewal notices, when they received them, when people opened those renewal notices, who clicked on a renewal notice but didn't renew, what is the time frame from when people got it. That is a huge amount of data that, quite honestly, might be very hard for us as humans to analyze. but that's what AI is great at. It can take and ingest all of that data, and it can start interpreting it, looking for patterns. Maybe those patterns are, hey, you know what? You've always believed that I start 120 days in advance of sending out renewal notices. Guess what? No one renews in that first 30 or 40 days. Rather, you should perhaps send less messages closer to renewal time, and we can test that. Now, the other thing it might show is which members are more likely to churn. That's a very important thing that AI can do also. And it's sort of taking a, looking at patterns. You know what? We see waning engagement from Bobby. Does that indicate that he might be churning as a member? For the most part, to be perfectly frank, right now, when you identify someone who's most likely to not renew, it's way too late, you're done. They're already at that bottom of the disengagement curve. AI can help us uncover those members that are more likely to churn earlier in the process, so actionably we can intervene and maybe do something about it to recover. And there's some that you're never going to recover, but it may be that we're sending the wrong content. Bobby's not interested in legislative issues, and we keep pounding him with that. AI can help us uncover some of those trends. So that's how AI, at a very high level, of course, can impact renewals. Let's look at registrations. Just as AI can sift through reams of data, engagement data, to help us with the renewal, it can do the same thing for registration. And I'm talking about registrations from everything, from webinars, regional meetings, and even the big annual meeting, which is the primary revenue generator for many associations. So AI can help us cluster members and prospects into different buckets. So for example, those that are most likely to register, those that have a very low likelihood of registering and not to waste our time with, right? Time is valuable. Resources are valuable. We need to put both of those things with the areas that are the highest probability for conversion. AI can help us with that. Maybe AI can help us uncover which members are perhaps sensitive to early bird pricing, and maybe the ones that are not. Why am I giving this joker Mitch early bird pricing when I know he's going to pay full price every time? Again, patterns, correlation. How are Mitch and Bobby the same way? When I learn about Bobby's behavior in terms of his analyzing or in terms of his interactions with communications to the annual meeting, what does that to reveal about Mitch? And how can I perhaps shift my communication strategy to maximize more people attending? And here's what else it can do. It can help prioritize leads. Now, you guys have heard, or you folks have heard, for generations, associations have to start behaving more like businesses. And guess what? It is true. So let's all think about our annual meeting or registrations, right? Many associations, what they're going to do is they're going to send out their initial blast or initiatives for registrations, and they're going to get a slew of them, but then they're going to want to reach out to certain members to try and get them, maybe through phone calls or other things. How are you going to prioritize that? Well, let's do it alphabetically. Good luck with that. Let's do it geographically. Even better luck with that. What you want to do, just like salespeople do, is you want to prioritize the hottest leads. Who are the people that have not registered but are the most likely to register so I can spend my time efficiently? And AI can help further qualify prospects and help you focus your resources on those that are really most likely to register. So AI can have a profound impact on generating revenue from registration. So let's now look at the third wheel, if you will, education. You all know that education is a key component to any organization, especially associations. It's about engagement. It's about showing your relevance. You want to educate your members about two things. Obviously, the subject matter, that's what you're there for. But let's be frank. You also want to educate them why you're valuable. You want to become that trusted source. And people spend huge amounts of effort and money trying to educate those people. So informing members and prospects is mission critical. And email communication is a key to this process. I'm sure all of you send out newsletters, monthly, quarterly, weekly, daily, hourly, whatever that is. That is the primary vehicle for educating members. Again, the community is another strong way that we can educate members so they can continue to be highly engaged. Website content, right? AI is helping create more individual personalized experiences, right? So think about it. When you go to a homepage of a website, it may be that Bobby and I both go to the same website, but guess what? Bobby's not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. And why? Because we know about Bobby. We know about Mitch. We know what he or she is interested in, and we can educate them by putting the right content in front of them in the right channel at the right time. And this is something that AI can play an important role in helping identify audiences that are most likely to respond, and suggesting or actually putting that content in front of them. So again, registrations, renewals, and education. AI can play a fundamental role in all of these. Now, to some of the not good news. Here is a challenge. Data, while it fuels AI, it's kind of like if you put crappy fuel in your car, what's going to happen, right? So there's a big challenge right now, right? That data fuels AI, and lots of data. But it's not just the quantity of data that's important, it's the quality. And even though organizations have massive amounts of data, many are hampered from realizing the full benefits from AI because their data is either siloed or not formatted correctly, okay? You've got your AMS data sitting in Impexium. You have your email and marketing automation data. Maybe it's sitting in Real Magnet or in Forms or somewhere else. You have your transactional data. Maybe it's sitting in Impexium, maybe some of it's in some third party, but are all of these data sources available? Because again, AI can look and can correlate and can do things, but it needs the data. And so that is a huge challenge for many organizations going forward. In fact, in a recent study, 96% of organizations cited data silos as an impediment to thwart AI enterprise projects. 96%. You don't get that anywhere. No one has that approval rating, nothing. The point is, it's a massive problem, okay? Now, not only is it a problem that you can't get access to the data, but here's the other problem. A machine learning or an artificial intelligence model that's incorrect is worse than even having one to begin with. So that's the other challenge. The first challenge is you don't have all of this data in one place, so it can't really do what it's meant to do. The other problem is either you don't have enough of it or it's incorrectly formatted or not available. So you're feeding the machine with bad input, and you know what you're going to get. You're going to get bad output from it. It's a real problem. So technology is helping break down these data silos a lot, and billions of dollars are being invested to solve this problem, and it's helping. But here are a few things, again, for you folks to think about at a high level as you're thinking about organizing, staffing your associations as this AI train is coming, to try and deal, at least to identify some of the issues surrounding this data silos. So the first thing is, think about consolidating your data management systems, right? Just think about that. Like, you want to be cognizant of how is it possible to consolidate. Maybe run an audit on each team's data collection methods and management systems. Just get a feel for where you are. You may be in a way better position than you think you are. You may not be. But the first step is analysis. The next thing, it's not a technological problem, quite honestly. It's a cultural problem. It's an organization cultural problem. That basically data silos, how do they come about? They come about because of rigid separation of different departments or business units. It's classic, right? And it's a hard problem to solve. I get it, but it's something we need to think about because that's something you can change, albeit it's challenging. But if there's an organizational imperative or directive to think about these things and maybe start breaking those barriers down, those silos might also be broken down. So also make it part of the culture, make it part of the company culture to be thinking about this and, breaking it down, right? A powerful way to change the culture is to prioritize it, right? I think we're still at a stage where there's a lot of runway for this. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I believe personally that those that succeed are going to be the ones that prepare the best. So a lot of this, there's tremendous potential, but you have to prepare. And one of the things to prepare for is this change in data structure. So hopefully, at least that'll give you some thoughts surrounding how we can impact how we collect data, process it, etc. So we've talked a lot about AI in terms of data, but now let's talk about content, because AI is having profound impacts on content as well, right? We've talked about how AI can be used to better segment and cluster our audience, but a segmented audience, honestly, is only good if we can actually deliver timely, relevant, targeted content to that segmented audience, right? If I know that here's this group of people that are highly interested in legislative issues, it does me no good to send them a generic newsletter. I need to be able to send them highly targeted and relevant content. And again, here, AI can play a very central role. So the first one I want everyone to start thinking about is the content curation process. We do it all the time. Curation is sort of a fancy word, but we do it, right? Think about when you create your newsletter right now. What do? I imagine some of you write your own content, and maybe not one person is writing all of it. Maybe there are several people within the organization that are writing it, and there's one person who is sort of collecting it, trying to figure out if it goes in the newsletter or not. It may be that there are people out there scouring the internet of other studies or other things that are relevant. You already are curating content. And in our community, for example, that happens all the time. People are posting new content all the time. But there's kind of this fire hose of content. And someone, you do it now, needs to curate that and say, hey, let's publish this content. Let's not publish this content. But here's what's happening now. If you think about those that are on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you have a feed of content. Guess what? That feed is not the same for everyone, even if you're interested in the same thing. I don't know how many of you use an app called Flipboard, but it basically aggregates content from different publications. And even if Bobby and I subscribe to the same topics, politics, finance, motorcycles, mountain climbing, we're not going to see the same content. Why? Because it's curated. Based on what I'm looking at, what I engage with, it learns. And it learns what I'm more likely to engage with and more likely or less likely to engage with. So AI is already having profound impacts on the content curation process. So also, I think now what's happening is, in my view, I think we're looking in the near future for a brand new paradigm of how we actually create content. If we all think about, honestly, right now for the last probably 10, 15, if not 20 years, how do we create our content? We say, okay, now it's time for the newsletter, the weekly newsletter. I go into my email creation tool, at Forms, Romagnet, whatever it is, and I create a thing called January 15th newsletter. And I start writing the stories, and I may save it, I may come back to it, I may put it in there. But I'm always creating the content for that thing, that bucket, which is the newsletter. In my view, that is going to change dramatically in the future. In my view, people are going to start creating nuggets of content. And they're going to be taking those nuggets of content, whether that's a story, a short blog post, a social post, and they're going to be publishing it to a repository, a content bank. And that content bank might be populated by content you create. It might be populated in addition to content your colleagues create. It also may be populated by third-party content. And really what's going to happen when it's time to send out that newsletter or that piece of communication, you at the beginning will assemble that newsletter from that bank. And ultimately, the AI will do it. And that's where I think we're going. And that's why, in my view, there is a brand new paradigm that we have to start preparing ourselves for of how we create content, how we staff our organizations to both create, review, curate that content, so we can absolutely optimize the way we communicate with our members and our prospects. So the second part of how AI is changing content is actually in terms of the distribution of that content as well. It's very similar to what we were talking about before, but think about it. So now, let's just say that we're doing our monthly newsletter, and let's just say there are 10 stories that are in that bank. It may be that Bobby gets 5 of them and Mitch gets, I don't know, 7 of them. But how about this? How about if Mitch and Bobby both should get 10 of them? Okay, that's fine. But the order of those stories, the priority of that content should be different. And it is challenging for the human mind to be able to set those priorities. But AI is uniquely positioned to help us do that. Based on how Bobby interacts with past content, based on how Mitch ignores certain things, based on how Bobby's interactions are very similar to Patrick's, the AI can start figuring out, you know what? Bobby is actually really more likely to interact with legislative content. Let's go ahead and prioritize that in his newsletter. And by the way, it is a self-contained loop. Because guess what? If I start sending it to him and he doesn't interact with it, I'm not going to continue doing it like you're doing now. It's kind of a self-correcting thing. It's like, hey, Bobby has stopped engaging with that. Let's automatically inject a new piece that he's perhaps more likely to. So it's not just about segmenting the audience and a new paradigm for how content is stored and created. It's also about the distribution of content. Now we're getting into the realm of kind of like the outer boundaries of AI today as it relates to content. So can AI actually create content? And here there are some very interesting, scary, exciting, frightening possibilities, okay? So right now we are seeing a lot of examples of how AI can create actual content. You've probably seen this on the internet, how AI can create a painting, how it can create music, how it does automatic reporting of, for example, small town meetings and things like that. These are not humans that are creating it. These are AI actually creating the content. And that's a huge shift. Everything else we've been talking about is kind of things that you've already done, but more intelligently distributing them, prioritizing them, checking them to make sure it's true. But now we're in the realm of, can content be created by AI? So what types of things are people working on, and what types of things do we see already in the marketplace? One, automated AI suggested images for content. You put together a post or a landing page or an email, it'll read that content. It's like, oh, guess what? This image is going to have the highest likelihood of engaging people. They're doing that today. 2, automated written email subject lines. That is happening today. It looks at the content of the email, and it can write the actual subject line. And by the way, it's just the beginning. Don't forget, I keep using Bobby. By the way, Bobby's sitting right across from me today. That's why I keep using him as an example. But Bobby's subject line is not going to be my subject line. It's going to be different based on our priorities. There are even people experimenting now with actual AI writing articles. You go to a page, you say, I want an article, 15 to 20 words on this subject, and it'll produce it. And guess what? It's pretty darn good. Is it great? No. But it's pretty darn good. And guess what? Tomorrow I might say, I might even take the darn out of it. Tomorrow I might say it's pretty good. And the next day I'm going to say, you know what? I sort of can't tell the difference between a sort of a well-written AI article and a poorly written human article. And the next day, who knows where we are. There are literally billions and billions of dollars being invested into this endeavor on a daily basis. And this is one of the things on the content side where, as I said before, there's a lot of exciting, but also, quite honestly, challenging possibilities. And this leads me to something that I suggest everybody should think about, right? And it is kind of the black box effect. So to a large degree, AI is still cloaked in a lot of mystery. AI tells us that Mitch will likely be interested in this movie or maybe this article, but we don't know why. And that bothers people, right? We want to know why. So think about it. Like when associations, or for that matter, any organization, we send out a piece of communication, a newsletter, a promotion, whatever it is, there are a bunch of sort of components to that. First of all, what's the content, right? What are you sending? Cool. When? When do you send that content? Do I send it in the morning? Do I send it in the afternoon? Weekdays? This is when. Where? Via what channel am I sending it? Do I send it by email? Do I put it in the online community? Do I do both? Do I put it on social media? And the who. Who am I sending it to? So let's examine these 4 dimensions in the realm of kind of AI. Honestly, the who, I don't think most people care if AI decides who to send it to, as long as it doesn't make mistakes, right? Right? Like if it segments people into legislative issues, that's fine. I think everyone is cool with it. The when, if AI can optimize my sending time, it says, Mitch, you know what? You're an idiot. You're the Association of Bartenders, and you're sending bartenders emails at 8:30 in the morning. No one's reading them. Why? Because bartenders aren't up there. So I think everyone is comfortable sort of outsourcing the when to a machine. The where, I don't think people are too concerned about it. AI says that Bobby is more likely to respond in the community and kind of like tailor back on email because he's not responding. Cool. But guess what? It's the what where people get very uncomfortable with. What am I sending? I'm going to create all of this content in this bank, or even more so, the content is going to be created by some AI robot. That's where people are starting to say, I'm not so sure about this. And so there is that black box effect with AI, and it's challenging, and we need to really be thinking about it. So another area where organizations and a lot of associations are seeing a lot of use of AI are chatbots, right? And you can see as chatbots, they're using as part of customer service teams, and there are a lot of major advantages of using AI chatbots. First of all, kind of the time factor, the rapid answers. Chatbot never sleeps, they never have a soccer practice, they never have this, especially if you have international membership. So the time factor and the ability to answer something rapidly is great. Chatbots can also handle a high volume of requests with similar responses. So it makes them really ideal for dealing with things of frequently asked questions, right? So it's repetitive, right? So they're really good at that. To be honest, especially with those repetitive ones, there's fewer errors with that. Chatbots don't have personality. Chatbots don't have good days or bad days. Chatbots don't get angry with someone on the phone. So there's fewer errors and there's increased customer engagement or member engagement. They can strike up a conversation with members about any issue at any time, and they can start getting people driven to more substantial conversations with membership, with registrations, with renewal. And so they can be also proactive, and we're seeing a lot of activity on the chatbots in the associations. So it's something to really think about as we're moving forward here. So this is a big question, right? Will AI and machine learning take my job away? You hear all sorts of craziness about this, right? Just over the last 6 months, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Elon Musk of Tesla got into this online Twitter, Facebook war about the future of robots and AI. And look, honestly, it's a serious question. So a survey conducted a little while ago found that 75% of adults believe that AI will eliminate more jobs than it creates. Eliminate more jobs than it creates. So it's an extremely controversial question. Let me just cut to the chase. I don't know the answer, but it's something that we all need to be thinking about in the following context. Hopefully what we've demonstrated a little bit in the past half hour or so is that AI is very, very good at doing repetitive, tasks, right? Repetitive, non-creative tasks. So that leads me to believe that it's not about taking away jobs. AI will absolutely, and it already has, shifted the employment landscape tremendously. You know, they did something about an analysis with doctors about how AI will affect the medical industry. And it turns out there are actually more doctors now, not less, but they're doing different things. So it's important to think about that as we're starting to staff and think about the future of staffing our organizations, we need to keep this in mind. I personally believe that, at least as of now, the comparative advantage that humans still have is on the creative side. And it's a good thing, right? Like, you know, AI doesn't have epiphany. It doesn't say, oh, that's a great marketing idea, or that's a great idea for a campaign. It's good at crunching numbers. It's good at detecting patterns. And to a certain degree, that's a good thing, because humans only have a very limited amount of resources, brain power. We get tired. And to a large degree in the association world, quite honestly, most people are spending a lot of time on repetitive tasks that take up all of their mental capacity and leave no room for creativity or things that will actually grow the organization. So as we're moving into this rapidly changing world with AI, we are, as association executives, going to have to make fundamental changes into our hiring processes. We're going to have to think about the type of people we need to bring on as we outsource, and that is a true fact. We're going to be outsourcing some of those tasks to the machine, but that will, in my view, generate even more opportunities, but with those people with different skill sets. So it's something to consider very early on in the process. So we've talked a lot about kind of on the sort of theoretical level, but I want to talk a little bit about here how HireLogic, how we're using AI and some of the things we're experimenting with, because I think it has a lot of resonance with how you might be thinking about it and how you might yourselves be able to use AI in the future. So, as you know, HireLogic has recently gone through a wave of acquisitions. We purchased companies over the last 18 months or 24 months, and primarily, you look at all the different companies we purchased, and some of them, like Informs and Real Magnets, Socius, etc. What's common to all of these? Data. It is data. So people don't buy companies because it's fun. Trust me, it's not fun. People buy companies because there's value. There's value for the company, yes, financially, but that is only going to translate financially if there's value for the customers, okay? So we need to create value through the data, and that's exactly what's important here. So think about it now. With these acquisitions, we now have access to community engagement. We know who posts, who comments, which content pages they visit, etc. Now, all of that email and marketing automation data is being ingested by that same system. Who opens emails? Which links are they clicking on? Which websites are they visiting? We also have integrations with all of these different AMS systems and other external parties. That data is being ingested as well. And now, if you think back to what we talked about, AI is fueled by data, and that's what we're sitting on top of. So just as you're sitting on a gold mine of data, we are as well. So how are we actually using it? So the first thing that we're starting to contemplate and thinking of is what we call integrated campaigns. So you may have a campaign where you're going to, I don't know, promote something or send something, and typically they've been siloed, right? Where the community or the AMS and the marketing automation, they don't talk to each other, or they don't talk to each other as efficiently as possible. So what we're doing is we're integrating all of that. It may be that there's something inside the community that we can then send out via automation, a series of emails, and knowing how people engage with it, we get that feedback, we can prioritize those emails. We can do the very thing that I was talking about before, setting up who should receive what when. And we can do that because it's all integrated. So, for example, what we're looking at now is even in the community, right? You log into our community, you see a bunch of threads and different posts. Why should Bobby and I see those same posts, right? We are interested in different things. And here's the trick of all of this thing. You're probably thinking, well, that's pretty easy, right? Well, Bobby and Mitch, they're like both of this title in the organization, or they're both from the Northwest. So those are demographic and firmographic pieces of information about people that we used to use to cluster people together and decide who should see what. But guess what? What we've learned in the past several years, looking at all of the advances in AI, is that it's not those demographic or firmographic pieces of information that are primary indicators. You know what is? Behavior. You know, I'm not interested in who you think you're going to vote for. I'm interested in who you voted for. I don't care what you tell me what you think. It's what you do. And that's how Netflix can do it. Netflix spent, I can't even tell you how much money trying to figure this out. And they use geography and demographics and gender and age and zip code. And you know what they figured out? It's not a true indicator. If you like this horror movie, you may like this one. Because Bobby liked these 3 movies and we're pretty close. When this new movie comes out and Bobby likes it, I'm more likely to watch it, even though we look nothing like each other with our demographic and firmographic information. And that is the true breakthrough that we're able to do. And that's exactly what we're doing in the community. We are starting to think about how we prioritize threads based on behavior. And in fact, we have our either daily or weekly digest, which is a summary of all of the more popular threads that have happened either in the last week or the last day. And guess what? Not everybody is getting all of those threads. And not everybody who is getting a lot of those threads is getting them in the same order. We are learning how we can prioritize those using these AI models that we're talking about. So we're very excited about how we can use all this data to better engage with our customers. So a question is, how do I get started with all this, right? And so the first thing, people say, oh, should I open up an account with AWS and start, doing my own algorithms? Honestly, I don't believe so, okay? Like I mentioned before, AI is almost like a utility now. Every vendor, whether it's a marketing automation company, a community company, whatever that is, an AMS company, they're all going to be infusing these techniques and this technology into their platforms. So the first thing I would say is just lean on your vendors and find out how they're using AI for your benefit. I also think just some final thoughts is to kind of watch out for pitfalls, okay? I've given, I hope, a very positive, and I do believe there's a positive outlook, but not everything is 100% with no risk, right? So again, what we're talking about here is a likelihood, right? Remember, all of this stuff is predictive. It is not prescriptive. It's like I like to say, it's like what's the difference between an actuary and a mob boss? An actuary is going to tell you, hey, out of 100,000 people, 5 are going to die. The mafia boss is going to tell you which 5, okay? We're trying to get there, but we're not there yet. It is likelihood. And there's a real danger of kind of like outsourcing all of this to the algorithm and forgetting about it. And just some recent examples, right? Amazon, one of the biggest developers of AI, they built this algorithm to help companies recruit. It was a breakthrough. You're going to get rid of all your human resources people, and we're going to find you the best candidate. Guess what? It had this massive bias against women. Okay? How many of you use Amazon? Everyone's raising their hand. How many of you get recommendations from Amazon? Everyone's raising their hand. How many of you buy 100% of what Amazon recommends? None of you are raising your hand. Why? Because it's hard. But that's what I want to sort of indicate, that there are pitfalls that in a way, there's kind of a dichotomy here, because in a way, like, you want to outsource it. It's kind of like set it and forget it, but you really cannot do that. there's massive changes happening, but we're still in the realm of the first inning of a minor league game. That's where we are with this stuff. So we need to be thinking about these pitfalls. So to kind of conclude, one of the things that I believe we really need to do is we need to look at AI as a tool, not a competitor. It's something that we're going to work with, just like you're working with marketing automation, or you're going to working with blockchain. It's not the end of itself. It is a tool, just like all these other tools, to help you do things that you need to do. And that is continue to boost engagement with members so you can drive renewals, registration, and education. And with that, happy to take any questions we might have.
Thank you, Mitch. That was great. We do have a couple questions here. And so let me just jump right in. One of the early questions we had, you mentioned that 3 kind of use cases for AI were education, registration, and renewals. The question was, do you see one of those as kind of being the leader, the early adopter, as far as where associations are leveraging AI technology over the other 2?
It's a really good question. I would say, for me, I think that the earliest wins for people on AI are doing that segmentation, using AI to help cluster audiences and start sending them relevant communication, regardless of whether it's for registration, renewal, or education purposes. That is where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, and there's already tremendous advances in that can get you there the quickest. Some of the other stuff is a little bit more involved, if you will. You have to train certain things. But here I think, despite all of my best efforts, people are still sending, everyone's covering their eyes, and I can see it, right? Everyone is sending that newsletter, the same darn thing to everybody. We have to stop that. And the first thing that AI can do is help us segment the audiences, prioritize content, and we can do that fairly quickly. And I believe what that's going to do is going to generally boost engagement. And if you think about it, it's like a ship floating on the water. That is just going to increase the tide, and it's going to lift engagement up overall.
Great. Another question was about AI, and since you mentioned it a couple times, this is the early stage, the first inning of a minor league game. So as associations or execs are kind of starting that first inning, they're in the batter's box, if you will, and they're trying to justify maybe a certain vendor or a certain piece of technology, and I'm paraphrasing the question, to their executive team or their board. How do they build the justification or the ROI to get that buy-in to use it without this kind of, without other early adopters to maybe reference? What's the best way to sell this to the association executive team or the board?
Yeah, it's a great way. And, it's funny because you mentioned that. I think it was just yesterday I was reading an article with the screaming headline that explaining AI to the C-suite is a waste of time. And essentially what they're talking about, here's my own view of these things. Again, you do have to make rationalizations, justifications for budgetary increases. I think that it's going to be an incremental process. And I think and going back to what I said earlier, using, relatively low cost AI introduction through your vendors, you're probably already doing it with your vendors already. Vendors already have it. So I would at least start with the content recommendations and prioritizations. I would do a very quick couple-month experiment with it, and I would show the results being more web page views of who, not just the how many, more email engagement, more community engagement. And I will bet big money, maybe not my money, but big money, that if you see that overall engagement raising as a result of using these tools, you will see a commensurate increase in the drivers of associations, registrations, and renewals. And I think that outcome is what should be presented to the C-suite, because that's what they're going to understand. No one cares about the model, about the neural networks. No one should even talk about that. We should talk about how AI is a tool that drives results and that increases ROI. And the primary method to do that, in my view, is content prioritization and segmentation of audiences first, using your current vendors so there's not a tremendous lift in cost and adoption of new technology.
Great. Well, one final question, Mitch. We have, I love this with like multiple exclamation points. What a great intro. The question is, what will we be talking about a year from now in AI if we're thinking ahead?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. I personally believe, and here's the scary part, this stuff is moving at an exponential level. I actually think if we do schedule another one, I bet you that I will sit here and I'm going to show you, okay? I'm going to go and have examples of content, social media posts, emails, subject lines. I'm going to put two on the screen, one that was created by a human and one that was created by a machine. And I'm going to challenge each and every one of us to discern the two in our own little Turing test. And my bet is we all fail. That's where I think it's going. I think the content creation is, there's so much money and so much advancement in it. I think that's going to be the next big thing we're talking about.
Terrific. Well, it sounds like Bobby and I have our first webinar for 2019. We'll have to put it on the schedule.
Happy to do it.
Mitch, on behalf of everyone here at Impexium, and as well as all our attendees, thank you very much. This was a great introduction to artificial intelligence. There was a lot of learning. We had a lot of great questions, so thank you to our audience as well. And we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. This concludes today's webinar.